The last thing I remember clearly before everything changed was checking my rearview mirror and seeing nothing. Not the headlights that had followed me for 30 miles, not the road behind me, not even the desert, just darkness. Complete darkness stretching farther than the highway should have allowed, and something about it felt completely wrong. Then there were 3 slow knocks against my driver's side window while I was doing 70 miles per hour. There was nothing outside that window for miles in any direction, yet whatever knocked was keeping pace with me. My name is Daniel Mercer, and what happened to me on Interstate 17 at 2:38 in the morning defies explanation. I have spent 11 months trying to rationalize it, and every explanation collapses under its own weight. I am 32 years old, and I work as a regional insurance auditor based out of Phoenix, Arizona. My job keeps me on the road almost constantly, moving between small cities and forgettable hotel rooms. Prescott Valley, Tucson, Yuma, Kingman. Highways blur together when you live like that long enough. The road becomes less about destination and more about distance from whatever waits when you stop. That night, I had just finished a 2-day audit in Prescott Valley, and my supervisor had booked me a hotel. I canceled the reservation without much thought because something in me needed the motion of driving. The drive south on Interstate 17 toward Phoenix is usually uneventful, especially after midnight. By 2 in the morning, traffic thins until it feels like you are the only moving object left alive. About 40 minutes south of Camp Verde, I noticed headlights far behind me, holding steady. At first, it felt ordinary, because cars exist and highways are meant for shared travel. But after 10 minutes, they remained exactly 3 car lengths behind me, without gaining or falling back. I changed lanes, and they changed lanes with the same precise adjustment in speed. I eased off the gas slightly, and the headlights eased off with identical restraint. That was when my body reacted before my mind allowed itself to understand. There was a tightening in my chest, and a quiet animal instinct whispering something was wrong. I told myself I was overthinking because paranoia thrives in empty highways and late hours. Then my GPS screen flickered once before returning to normal, as if nothing had happened. Moments later, it flickered again, then twice more rapidly before going completely black. At the same instant, the radio cut off mid-song and dissolved into low static. My dashboard lights dimmed slightly, not enough to panic, but enough to unsettle. I checked my rearview mirror, and the headlights were gone entirely, without fading. Behind me was only black highway stretching into nothingness without reference or depth. Then my GPS screen turned back on, but the map had disappeared completely. There was no route, no highway, no Phoenix, only a blinking instruction, recalculating. Exit 287 in half a mile. I had driven Interstate 17 countless times, and there was no exit 287. A green highway marker appeared in my headlights, confirming the same instruction. The GPS voice spoke, slower than usual, almost distorted, like something speaking through it. Take exit 287. I want to say I ignored it, but isolation changes how the mind weighs decisions. The rational part grows quiet while the primitive part searches desperately for interruption. My hand moved to the indicator before I consciously decided to turn. The clicking sound echoed loudly inside the otherwise silent car. I eased onto the ramp, and immediately my rearview mirror flooded with light. The headlights were back, directly behind me, already positioned exactly 3 car lengths away. The ramp curved downward more steeply than any normal exit should. There were no streetlights, no guardrails, no reflective lane markers guiding the descent. It spiraled left, then further left, descending lower than the highway level. At the bottom, the road split into 2 narrow directions, both swallowed by darkness. My GPS showed nothing but a blue dot floating in blank gray space. The SUV stopped behind me, with its engine running and lights off. It waited, without honking, without flashing, without any sign of urgency. I turned right without knowing why, and it followed without hesitation. Ahead in the distance, I saw a faint flicker of orange light. A building slowly emerged from the darkness, as though revealed by memory. A single-story structure with 6 rooms and a dying neon sign. Sunset Pines Lodge buzzed weakly above a gravel parking lot. There were no pine trees anywhere near this stretch of desert. I pulled into the lot, and the SUV parked across the only exit, not blocking it violently, just occupying the space with quiet precision. I turned off my engine, and the silence that followed felt impossibly loud. And somewhere ahead, inside that motel, I heard 3 slow knocks again. The ramp dropped faster than any exit I had ever taken. The asphalt curved too sharply to feel engineered. My speedometer fell from 70 to 50, yet gravity seemed to pull the car harder downward. The headlights behind me did not flicker or sway, but followed with mechanical precision. No guardrails lined the ramp. No reflectors marked the edges of the drop. Beyond the edge was not desert, but something darker and deeper than open land. The descent lasted longer than it should have for a normal interstate interchange. The curve tightened and tightened again, as if spiraling into the earth. My GPS screen remained black, yet the steering wheel felt guided. The headlights behind me never gained distance and never fell back. Exactly 3 car lengths. Every time I glanced into the mirror, I pressed the brake harder to test the distance, and the SUV adjusted instantly. The ramp finally straightened and flattened into a narrow 2-lane road. There were no streetlights and no highway noise from above. The interstate had vanished completely, as if I had never been on it. The air outside looked thicker somehow, almost grainy in my headlights. I reached the bottom and slowed to a crawl. The road split into left and right, with no signage and no markings. Both directions looked identical and equally empty. My GPS screen blinked once, then displayed nothing but a blue dot floating in gray. No road grid, no labels, no direction arrows. Just me, suspended digitally in nowhere. The SUV stopped behind me without honking, without revving. It waited with the patience of something that does not experience anxiety. I turned right because my hands chose before my brain did. The SUV turned right at the exact same moment. The road ahead stretched flat into darkness without horizon glow. No city lights, no distant headlights, no aircraft crossing overhead. The desert felt paused, like a paused video frame. I accelerated slightly, and the SUV maintained 3 car lengths. I slowed again, and it matched perfectly. The precision was mathematical, not human. My phone showed no signal, not even emergency call capability. The signal indicator space was blank, as if erased. The radio hissed faint static before dying completely. Only the engine sound remained, steady and controlled. The road surface changed texture beneath the tires. It felt older, less maintained, less used. Faint cracks in the asphalt passed through the headlights like scars. Then I saw a glow ahead, barely visible. A flicker of orange against the horizon. At first, I thought it was a reflection or heat shimmer, but the light pulsed irregularly, struggling like an old neon sign. The shape of a building emerged slowly from darkness. Low and rectangular, with 6 evenly spaced doors. The structure looked faded beige, almost gray. A sign above it buzzed weakly, Sunset Pines Lodge. There were no pine trees anywhere in sight. Only flat scrub desert in every direction. The parking lot was gravel, not asphalt. I pulled in slowly, and gravel crunched under my tires. The SUV followed and positioned itself across the entrance. Not aggressively, but deliberately, blocking the only visible exit. Its headlights turned off the moment we entered, as if it no longer needed them. I sat in the driver's seat for a full minute. The engine idled steady while my pulse did not. Room 3 had a faint yellow flicker through the curtain. The other 5 rooms were completely dark. The motel sign buzzed above me in tired intervals. The desert air looked colder than it should have been. I turned off the engine, and the silence landed heavy. The absence of sound felt intentional, like something had removed the background noise of reality. I stepped out, and the cold hit instantly. Not dry desert cold, but damp cave cold. The SUV engine shut off behind me slowly. The sound faded unnaturally, stretched. I did not look back. I walked toward the office door, glowing faintly. The wooden door was slightly open. Warm light spilled onto gravel. I reached for the handle. The wood felt warm, warmer than it should have been at 3 in the morning. And before I pushed it fully open, I heard movement from inside. Not footsteps, not shuffling, just the quiet shift of weight, like someone had been waiting, and finally adjusted their stance. I pushed the office door open and stepped into air that felt warmer than the desert outside. The room was smaller than expected and lit by a single yellow bulb overhead. A wooden counter divided the entrance from the back wall, where faded brochures curled at the edges. A clock hung above the counter, frozen permanently at 2:51. The smell of burnt coffee lingered like something forgotten but never removed. Behind the counter sat an old man with pale eyes and sun-damaged skin. He did not look up when the door opened. His hands rested flat on the counter, unmoving, as if positioned deliberately. I waited for him to acknowledge me. Nothing changed. "Excuse me," I said, trying to steady my breathing. My voice sounded misplaced inside that tight space. The old man reached beneath the counter without lifting his gaze. He placed a brass key on the wood and slid it toward me. The key scraped softly before stopping inches from my hand. The number stamped into it was 3. I did not touch it immediately. "I have not checked in," I said. The old man lifted his head slowly. His eyes met mine without expression. "Room 3, he said. Just that. No question. No explanation. "How much?" I asked. "You already paid," he replied. The certainty in his tone removed the possibility of misunderstanding. I picked up the key. It felt heavier than brass should feel. It was warm. Not warm from his hands. Warm like something carried for years. I glanced around the office again. No computer. No reservation log. No television. Just the humming bulb and the frozen clock. The clock still read 2:51. "Has that been broken long?" I asked. He did not respond. He lowered his gaze back to the counter. The interaction had ended for him. I stepped backward toward the door. The office felt smaller as I moved. The air thicker, like breathing inside a sealed container. I stepped back into the desert night. The cold hit differently now. Sharper. The black SUV remained parked across the lot. Engine off. Windows completely opaque. Room 3 waited at the far end. I walked slowly across gravel, counting doors without meaning to. 1, 2, 3. The flickering light inside room 3 pulsed faintly through the curtain gap. The motel sign buzzed behind me. The desert around the building felt unnaturally close, as if pressing inward. I stopped at the door to room 3. The paint was faded dark green, almost gray. The handle was worn smooth. I inserted the key. It slid in effortlessly. The lock turned without resistance. The door opened inward. Darkness inside except faint television glow. I stepped into the room and closed the door behind me. The sound of it shutting echoed longer than it should have. I found the switch and turned on the lamp. Warm yellow light filled the space. The room was immaculate. Bedspread pulled tight with perfect hospital corners. Pillows aligned symmetrically. No dust on the nightstand. No stain on carpet. The television faced the bed. Already on. Static rolling slowly. No remote in my hand. No reason for it to be active. The smell inside the room was metallic. Subtle but distinct. Like iron. Like old coins. I stepped toward the desk. Something white rested on its surface. A business card. I picked it up. Daniel Mercer, Regional Audit Specialist, Phoenix, Arizona. My card. Slightly bent along one edge. I keep my cards in a leather holder inside my laptop bag. I had given exactly one card in Prescott Valley. To Carol Dwyer. She was not here. I turned the card over. Blank. No note. No handwriting. Just mine. In a room I never booked. At a motel not on any map. The bathroom light flickered. I looked toward the partially open door. The fluorescent tube inside hummed faintly. Then I heard it. A soft shifting sound. Like someone adjusting their weight. I froze. The sound came again. Closer to the shower. A deliberate movement. Not accidental. My throat tightened. I told myself someone else had checked in. That this room was double booked. That anything rational was possible. I stepped toward the bathroom slowly. Each footfall felt amplified. I reached the doorway. The air inside felt colder. The shower curtain hung still. I gripped the plastic edge. It felt damp, though no water was running. I pulled it back sharply. The shower was empty. Bone dry. No moisture on tile. No footprints. I exhaled. A hollow sound. Then I turned to the mirror. It was completely fogged. Every inch clouded. In a room with no steam. No running water. No humidity. Written through the condensation were 3 words. You took the exit. The letters were deliberate. Even. Carefully drawn. Not rushed. Not panicked. I stared at them. The fog around the words began thinning. but the letters remained clear. Behind me, the television static deepened. Lower frequency, almost rhythmic. The bathroom light stopped flickering. It held steady now. That steadiness felt worse. The air inside the room felt heavier, like pressure building. I stepped backward slowly. The words remained visible. You took the exit. Not a warning, a confirmation, as if logging a completed action. I moved back into the main room. The television screen shifted. The static darkened slightly, lines moving slower. My reflection appeared faintly in the glass. And behind it, something darker, standing further back in the room. I turned immediately. Nothing. Just the perfect bed, the lamp, the desk, the business card. I faced the television again. The darker shape was gone. The static continued. The silence in the room felt structured. Not empty. Structured. Like an environment waiting for input. I stepped toward the door. Turned the handle. It did not move. I tried again. Still locked. I did not remember locking it. I tried the deadbolt. It would not budge. The key remained in my pocket. I pulled it out. The brass felt warmer now. I inserted it into the interior lock. It turned freely. The handle still did not move. The television crackled softly. The static shifting pattern. I looked back at the screen. The image distorted. Lines bending. Pixels tearing. Something forming behind the noise. Tall. Standing at a distance. Proportions slightly wrong. The frame glitched around it. I stepped closer. The image snapped back to static. Silence again. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out. One bar of signal. A single notification. Unknown number. I opened the message. You were not supposed to survive the first time. My stomach dropped. The room tilted slightly. The air felt thinner. The first time, which meant there was a first. And this was something else. A second. A continuation. The television emitted a sharp hiss. The lamp flickered once. The words from the mirror echoed in my head. You took the exit. The message glowed on my screen. You were not supposed to survive the first time. And in that moment, something inside me began remembering. Not images, not sounds. A sensation. Weightlessness. Suspended between road and impact. A presence beside me. Closer than the passenger seat. Closer than breath. And a choice. Made in silence. Without language. Come now. Or come later. I had chosen later. I had walked away from the first. The motel room felt smaller. The air colder. The television flickered again. And I understood something I had not wanted to understand. This was not a trap. It was a return. I backed away from the mirror slowly until my knees struck the bed behind me. The words "you took the exit" lingered faintly before the fog thinned and cleared completely. My reflection returned alone, but the certainty of those words remained fixed inside me. The television's static shifted tone growing deeper, like a frequency adjusting itself. I did not turn toward it because something in me already understood. The room felt smaller, as if the walls had moved inward without making a sound. I sat on the edge of the perfectly made bed and felt the tremor in my hands. Not panic, but recognition settling like weight into bone. The statement on the mirror was not a threat, it was confirmation. Something had been waiting for me to arrive here. The key on the desk seemed heavier now than metal should feel. My business card beside it looked less misplaced and more intentional, like evidence in a case I had unknowingly been building against myself. Then my phone vibrated softly in my hand. One single bar of signal appeared where there had been none. A message from an unknown number waited on the screen. You were not supposed to survive the first time. I read the sentence again, letting each word separate itself. The first time implied another attempt. Implied that survival had been an interruption, not a victory. The accident surfaced immediately without resistance. 8 years ago, on Interstate 17 late at night, I had fallen asleep at the wheel. The car drifted from the lane and struck uneven ground. Momentum took over and metal rolled against asphalt, 3 violent rotations. The roof crushed inward glass, exploding into desert darkness. I remembered weightlessness in that fraction of suspended time, the space between leaving the road and meeting the ground. In that moment, something had been present beside me. Not visible, not tangible, but undeniably close. A pressure like a tension directed fully at me. The emergency room doctor later told me I should not have survived. She studied photographs of the wreck and looked confused by my condition. "People do not walk away from this," she said quietly. I accepted that explanation as luck, physics bending momentarily in my favor. But there had always been a gap in my memory. Not the impact, but the second before it. The second where something felt offered. A choice disguised as instinct. Come now or come later. I had chosen later without knowing I had chosen anything. The text message pulsed faintly in my hand. "You were not supposed to survive the first time." My throat tightened not with fear, but with clarity. The motel room was not new to me. The exit was not new to me. This place had existed in that suspended fraction of a second. A collection point between impact and consequence. I had been here before, not in body, but in agreement. The mirror had not accused me. It had reminded me. You took the exit. The television flickered again behind me. The static dissolved into grainy footage. Black and white highway scene from 8 years ago. My overturned car wheels spinning under distant stars. Paramedics arriving, red and blue lights slicing through desert dark. On the far side of the road, something tall stood beyond illumination. Its shape distorted the image as if the camera refused it. It had been there that night. Watching, not interfering. Confirming. The footage froze on that frame. The figure turning slightly toward the camera. The screen cut to static again. The motel lamp flickered once, then steadied. The room felt expectant, like a ledger waiting for a signature. I looked at my left wrist where the fracture once healed. A deep bone ache surfaced uninvited. Memory and pain overlapping across time. The text message remained open. You were not supposed to survive the first time. Survival had postponed something, not prevented it. The motel room was not punishment. It was completion, a place for unfinished moments to conclude. I understood then why the key felt warm, why the clerk had not asked my name, why room 3 had been prepared. Because I had already checked in once, and left before it was finished. The accident had not ended that night. It had paused, and tonight the pause had expired. The television static deepened in tone. The walls seemed to breathe faintly around me. Not collapsing, not attacking, simply enclosing. The debt was not violent. It was procedural. Later had arrived, and I was exactly where I had agreed to be. The door handle lowered slowly, and the latch released with a soft mechanical click that felt rehearsed. The door opened inward without force, and red light poured into the room in slow breathing pulses. The figure filled the doorway, its height bending the frame as if proportions meant nothing here. The temperature dropped instantly, and sound seemed to compress like pressure tightening around my skull. It did not rush forward, and it did not hesitate either. It simply entered, as if returning. The television behind me flickered, and the static dissolved into grainy footage from 8 years ago. The accident replayed from above my car, overturned wheels spinning helplessly in desert darkness. Paramedics moved quickly around the wreck, their urgency controlled and practiced under emergency lights. Behind them, at the edge of illumination, stood the same towering silhouette, perfectly still. The footage pixelated around it, as if reality struggled to render what it was seeing. The image shifted abruptly from the accident to the motel parking lot outside this room. A timestamp glowed in the corner, showing tonight at exactly 2:51 in the morning. The black SUV sat motionless beneath the flickering sign, its headlights extinguished completely. The driver door opened, and the tall figure stepped out into grainy surveillance light. The camera warped around its shape, tearing frames as it turned toward room 3. It stood facing the door and did not move closer, just waiting patiently. The rotary phone on the nightstand rang violently, cutting through the thick silence. I picked it up and heard only desert wind before the old clerk spoke calmly. "You cannot check out twice," he said, and the line went dead immediately. The lights in the room vanished in a single frame, leaving absolute darkness. A deep red glow began bleeding under the door, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Footsteps moved across gravel outside, measured, deliberate, and perfectly unhurried. 3 slow knocks landed against the door, identical to the ones on my window. Recognition settled over me, heavier than fear ever could. The figure did not chase me. It had never been chasing me. It had been escorting me toward a location I already owed. My wrist throbbed sharply, the same deep ache from the fracture years ago. The motel walls flickered, and the perfect bed dissolved at the edges. Reality thinned like fabric stretched too far. The voice inside my chest spoke clearly now, saying, "You chose later." I remembered the accident fully, the weightless second before impact. Something had offered a choice in that suspended moment between life and death. Come now or come later, it had whispered without sound. Some primitive part of me had chosen later without understanding the terms. The red light intensified, and the figure moved closer without taking visible steps. Cold spread through my body, not touching skin, but moving directly into bone. The ache in my wrist deepened until it felt like the fracture was reopening. The television showed the accident again, but this time I saw the red glow behind the paramedics. The figure had not been observing that night, it had been confirming the agreement. Life extended, debt postponed, nothing forgiven, nothing erased. The motel ceiling cracked, thin fractures spreading like stress across glass. The old clerk appeared briefly in the office doorway, watching silently. His expression remained unchanged, as if witnessing a routine transaction. The figure raised one elongated arm toward my injured wrist. Pain surged, bright and blinding, collapsing time inward. The desert outside dissolved, and the motel structure folded inward. White light overtook everything, not darkness, but absolute white. The kind of white that erases edges and simplifies reality. Sound vanished completely, and the red light disappeared. There was only weightless stillness again. The same stillness from 8 years ago, and the agreement completing itself. I was already running when the door handle finished turning behind me. The back wall felt solid until my shoulder hit it, and something gave. Cold desert air swallowed me the moment I stumbled outside. Behind me, the front door opened without urgency, without force. No sprinting footsteps, no shouting, only deliberate movement. The kind of patience that belongs to something that never doubts the outcome. I ran into the dark without direction. The motel sign flickered faint orange behind me, shrinking too quickly. The desert ground felt wrong beneath my shoes. Not firm, not packed, but soft, as if layered over something unsettled. Each step sank slightly deeper than the last. The air carried no wind, no animal sound, no distant traffic. Just my breathing and the rhythm of my pulse. Then I saw the red lights. Not headlights attached to a vehicle, just two deep crimson points hovering above the desert floor. They followed without closing distance. Not chasing, simply accompanying. Like something guiding me toward a predetermined place. My lungs burned, and my fractured wrist began to ache again. That old bone memory rising through my arm. I reached pavement suddenly. A narrow 2-lane road cutting through darkness. No interstate above, no ramp behind me. No glow of Phoenix on any horizon. The red lights stopped at the desert edge, as if respecting an invisible boundary. I stood in the center of the road, breathing hard, watching them pulse with that same slow heartbeat rhythm. For a moment, I believed the road protected me, believed there were rules here, believed boundaries mattered. Then the voice came from inside my chest. Not spoken aloud, but unmistakable. You left before it was finished. The accident returned in full clarity. The suspended fraction of weightlessness. The offer disguised as instinct. Come now or come later. I had chosen later. Not consciously, not verbally, but chosen all the same. The red lights drifted onto the road. No hesitation, no resistance. Boundaries meant nothing. Later had arrived. I fell to my knees, not from fear, from recognition. The cold rose through the asphalt into my bones. The ache in my wrist intensified, time folding over itself. The accident and this road becoming the same moment. The red lights circled slowly around me, confirming position, confirming inevitability. The voice again, softer now. It is only the rest of what you agreed to. The cold moved inward, beyond skin, beyond muscle. I closed my eyes. White consumed everything. Not darkness, not explosion. White like a slate being cleared. White like breath leaving a body. Then ceiling. White textured ceiling in my Phoenix apartment. Morning light through blinds across familiar walls. Neighbor pipes running faintly. A car starting somewhere below. I lay still, listening to ordinary life. My clothes still on. My wrist aching. Sweat soaking through my shirt. I reached for my phone. GPS history already open. Last destination logged automatically. Exit 287. Arrival 2:51 a.m. I opened the map and scrolled Interstate 17. Every exit marked clearly. No exit 287. A gap in numbering where it should have been. 14 extra miles on my odometer. Miles that existed physically, but nowhere on any map. My hand slid into my jacket pocket and closed around metal. Brass worn smooth. The number 3 stamped into it. Warm despite the morning air. Room 3 existed, whether the road did or not. I placed the key in my desk drawer. Under papers, but not out of mind. I stopped driving at night. Transferred positions to avoid highways. Avoided Interstate 17 entirely. For 11 months, nothing happened. Silence heavy but tolerable. Then a letter arrived. No return address. Phoenix postmark. Inside a photograph. Grainy black and white. My apartment parking lot. Timestamp 2:38 a.m. 3 nights earlier. Across from my car. A black SUV. I turned the photograph over. 6 words written carefully. You still owe the rest. The key and photograph now share the same drawer. I check them every morning. Because I wake at 2:38 a.m. without fail. Some nights I hear an engine idling below my window. I never look. The one time I did, the lot was empty. But fresh tire tracks crossed the dust. Warm when I touched them. Whatever I postponed that night 8 years ago is not finished. Exit 287 is still waiting. And highways at night all look the same. Until the GPS glitches. Until headlights match your speed exactly. Until a voice tells you to take an exit you have never seen before. If this story unsettled you, it is because part of you understands it. Some debts are not financial. Some roads are not on maps. If you drive alone at night and ever feel watched, do not ignore that instinct. Subscribe to The Day Everything Changed TV. Turn on notifications so you never miss what waits in the dark. And tell me in the comments, have you ever driven past an exit that felt like it did not belong? Because some of you have seen exit 287. You just did not know what it was called. I will see you in the next one.